The Battle of Eylau, fought on February 7th to 8th, 1807, was a pivotal moment in the Napoleonic Wars where Napoleon Bonaparte confronted the Russian and Prussian armies near the town of Eylau, in modern-day Poland. Unlike his previous triumphs, Eylau was not a decisive victory for Napoleon. The brutal and bloody confrontation showcased both his tactical prowess and the formidable resistance he faced, marking the first time he encountered an enemy that could challenge his dominance in Europe. The significance of the Battle of Eylau lies in its demonstration of the limits of Napoleon's military genius when faced with tenacious opponents and harsh conditions, such as snow and limited visibility, which impeded his forces. It underscored the resilience of the Russian forces, and the staggering number of casualties on both sides highlighted the intensity and ferocity of the battle. With over 30,000 soldiers dead or wounded, Eylau served as a grim reminder of the human cost of Napoleon's ambitions. Real-world examples of its influence include the subsequent strategic adjustments Napoleon had to make in his military campaigns. He realized that simply relying on overwhelming force wasn't enough when dealing with resolved adversaries, forcing him to adapt his tactics, which was evident in later battles such as Friedland. Additionally, Eylau sent ripples through Europe, emboldening countries resistant to French expansion to continue their struggle, thereby complicating Napoleon's quest for continental hegemony. Opinions regarding Eylau often emphasize it as a testament to the challenges faced by even the greatest military minds. Historians view the high casualty rate and lack of a clear victor as evidence of the battle's significance in tempering Napoleon's aggressiveness. However, some argue that the Russian inability to capitalize on their defensive success signaled missed opportunities in countering Napoleon's campaigns effectively. Challenges and controversies surrounding the battle include debates over the tactical decisions made by Napoleon and his marshals. Critics argue that his eagerness to engage in battle amid poor weather conditions was a strategic miscalculation, reflecting overconfidence that nearly cost him dearly. Conversely, supporters assert that his leadership helped avert a potential disaster, maintaining the morale and cohesion of his troops in dire circumstances. In the broader context of the Napoleonic Wars, the Battle of Eylau directly influenced subsequent military engagements and peace negotiations. It forced European powers to reconsider their strategies against France, while also shaping perceptions of Napoleon, not just as an invincible conqueror, but as a leader who could be challenged and, perhaps eventually, defeated. Napoleon's military strategy and forces were pivotal at the Battle of Eylau, showcasing both his genius and the significant resistance he faced. Napoleon Bonaparte, a master of military tactics, often relied on rapid maneuvers, the element of surprise, and the strategic use of his forces to defeat larger adversaries. His approach was to concentrate his troops at decisive points, using artillery effectively and maintaining high morale among his soldiers. However, at Eylau, these strategies met substantial challenges, marking a turning point where his tactics were tested like never before. The significance of Napoleon's military strategy and forces at Eylau lies in its demonstration of the limits of even the most skilled general's tactics when confronted with harsh conditions and formidable opposition. This battle was not only one of Napoleon's bloodiest, but also one that highlighted the resilience and tenacity of the Russian forces. The sheer number of casualties and the battlefield stalemate marked a departure from Napoleon's previous swift victories, underscoring that even the most brilliant strategies can face substantial limitations. Specific examples that illustrate this point include the use of the Grande Armée, which was a testament to Napoleon's ability to organize and maximize manpower for strategic advantage. At Eylau, however, the logistical challenges and poor weather severely hampered the effective deployment of his troops. Another example is the extensive use of artillery. which was crucial in Napoleon's previous victories. But at Eylau, the snowy conditions blunted its effectiveness, resulting in the need for brutal close combat. Opinions supporting the examination of Napoleon's strategies emphasized the genius with which he altered military tactics and reshaped European warfare. However, Eylau presented potential challenges, such as the overextension of forces and the severe Russian winter affecting troop movement and morale. Critics argue that this battle exposed the vulnerabilities in Napoleon's reliance on speed and decisive engagements, providing a grim foreshadowing of the difficulties he would later face in Russia. At Eylau, Napoleon's strategy connected with broader themes of leadership under stress and the unpredictable nature of warfare. It influenced the perception of his invincibility and demonstrated the necessity of adaptability in military command. This battle is a reminder of the complexity of war, where preeminent strategy must continuously evolve in response to dynamic circumstances and formidable adversaries. The phrase, "the Russian army's defensive tactics," delves into the strategic measures employed by the Russian forces during the Battle of Eylau on February 7th to 8th, 1807, one of the most brutal clashes of the Napoleonic Wars. These defensive maneuvers played a pivotal role in counteracting Napoleon's formidable strategies, marking a significant shift from the dominant victories Napoleon had previously enjoyed across Europe. The Russian army, led by General Bennigsen, was not merely executing standard military protocols. They were creating a formidable stance that included deep defensive lines, effective use of the terrain, and the strategic use of artillery and counterattacks to disrupt the French forces. The significance of these tactics at Eylau lies in their role in halting Napoleon's seemingly unstoppable advance, as they effectively managed to prevent him from achieving a decisive victory, thereby altering the strategic landscape of Napoleonic Europe. One illustrative example of these defensive tactics is the use of artillery in combination with snow-covered landscapes to slow down and confuse the French troops, essentially neutralizing some of the advantages Napoleon typically wielded. Another example is the strong, resilient infantry lines that, despite suffering heavy casualties, held their ground and countered assaults with disciplined volleys of fire, demonstrating an impressive steadfastness under pressure. These tactics underscored a shift in military engagements during the era, highlighting that even a seemingly invincible force could be met with staunch resistance. Opinions supporting the effectiveness of the Russian defensive tactics often underscore the resilience and adaptability of their strategies, which are viewed as key factors in preventing a complete rout. However, controversy surrounds whether the Russian tactics were a definitive success, given the staggering casualties and the indecisive outcome of the battle. Critics argue that the Russian forces merely survived rather than militarily triumphed, emphasizing the immense human cost versus strategic gain. The defensive strategies employed by the Russians at Eylau were not isolated maneuvers. They influenced and interlinked with broader military dynamics, prompting Napoleon to reconsider his methods and the sustainability of his campaigns. This event also foreshadowed the eventual quagmire Napoleon faced with his Russian campaign, where defensive depth and attrition wore down his forces. Thus, while the Battle of Eylau did not yield a clear victory for either side, it set the stage for future confrontations where defensive tactics would play a critical role against one of history's greatest military minds. The Battle of Eylau, fought on February 7th to 8th, 1807, was a significant encounter during the War of the Fourth Coalition, where Napoleon Bonaparte faced the Russian and Prussian forces. The key events and turning points of this battle are crucial in understanding how Napoleon, known for his military prowess, met formidable resistance that challenged his strategic acumen and altered his campaign in Eastern Europe. This battle is significant, as it marked one of the rare instances where Napoleon did not achieve a decisive victory. shaking the aura of invincibility that surrounded him. Eylau revealed the vulnerabilities of Napoleon's Grande Armée, which had previously steamrolled through Europe. The significance lies in how the battle exposed the limits of French tactical dominance and foreshadowed possible challenges to come from alliances united against Napoleonic ambitions. Two specific examples illustrate the importance of these key events. Firstly, the intense two-day engagement, marked by brutal winter conditions, culminated in a bloody, inconclusive standoff. Estimates suggest approximately 40,000 combined casualties, underscoring the high stakes and the ferocious nature of the conflict. Secondly, Marshal Pierre Augereau's corps was severely disrupted by a sudden snowstorm and intense Russian artillery, which significantly impacted French coordination and contributed to the battle's indecisive outcome. Opinions about Eylau often highlight it as a testament to the resilience of the Russian army under General Bennigsen, suggesting that Napoleon was truly met with an equal force that stymied his advances. Some military historians consider this battle as an early indicator of the overstretched capacities of the French military forces, foreshadowing the catastrophic Russian campaign of 1812. However, controversies and alternative viewpoints arise from debates over the tactical decisions made by both sides. While some argue that Napoleon's strategic planning was sound under the circumstances, others contend he misjudged the Russians' ability to regroup and counterattack effectively. Furthermore, the ambiguous outcome has led some to view Eylau not as a defeat, but as a harsh learning experience that momentarily stalled French expansion. The events of Eylau connect to the broader context of Napoleonic Wars by influencing subsequent military engagements and alliances. This battle demonstrated to European powers that Napoleon's forces could be contested, boosting the morale and resolve of his adversaries. It acted as a precursor to more cautious military tactics and planning by Napoleon, highlighting the intricate balance of power during this tumultuous period in European history, thereby leaving a lasting impression on the trajectory of Napoleonic campaigns.